What's up, everybody? This is Dallas Stone here. It's been a while, so I wanted to kind of put up some content and kind of talk over it and kind of explain to you what's been going on and kind of give you an update. So a lot of you might have noticed a lot of lack of personal project time-lapse videos on the channel, and the main reason for that is I'm learning Blender right now. So I'm kind of going through a lot of Blender basics, and I'm struggling, and I was struggling quite a bit for the first 20 hours, just kind of getting my head wrapped around Blender again. And, you know, now that I have over, I think once I hit about the 40-hour mark of getting back into Blender, that was when I started to feel a lot more comfortable. And for me, I was just like, I don't want to fumble while recording content, especially if I'm trying to figure out the perfect settings and export settings and tools and all those things. Like, I felt like the content wasn't valuable, so I said forget it. I'm just gonna cut back on creating videos and just focus on learning right now and kind of honing my Blender skills. So my first project that I actually did, and I did do some recordings of it and I ended up canning it, it's a compact prism. Anyone who's been playing Escape from Tarkov or knows guns, it's essentially a 2.5 times scope that you put on an assault rifle. And I learned very quickly that I was trying to jump into Blender and learn Blender on an asset that is a little bit too complicated. So I had to go back to the drawing board. I ended up scrapping that project, and I said, I need to find something that still looks really cool, that I really like, and that's a little bit more simpler. That way I can practice the skills, the basic fundamentals of Blender. So I found this awesome concept art. People who have been following me on Twitter and my art station, it was the vending machine that I worked on. It kind of looks like a gas pump as well. It's a really cool concept. And, you know, I got to learn a lot working on that asset. I got to learn a lot of new techniques. I got to learn how to use and utilize Blender's modifier tools and its tools that it has to offer. Got used to shortcuts and all those things. And the most valuable thing that I learned was, okay, how do you get an asset, model it, right? Model it in high poly, subdivisions, all those things. And how do I UV it in Blender? And I used only default Blender UV tools, which was crazy. And I'm very happy that I reached out to a few Blender artists on some of their favorite UV add-ons, and they recommended, or one of the artists that I spoke to recommended this really good UV tool add-on that's free. So I can't wait to start using that for the MPX that you're seeing right now on screen. So the most valuable thing there was, okay, so now I learned the basics of modeling and UVing, right? Like, I already know like the fundamentals of, you know, where to put your seams and all those things, right? But now it's about transferring all those skills into Blender. So yeah, so great learnings there. So I learned how to bring in an asset from Blender to Marmoset, and how the file structure should look, how the folder structure should look, how my outliner should look, so that it makes nice bakes. So again, look forward to seeing a video where I kind of go over that workflow, and then exporting all those things, bringing that into Substance Painter, and then being able to bring everything over to Substance Painter with their proper settings, etc., etc., and then bring it back into Marmoset for the rendering and lighting and presentation and all that stuff. So just the most basic workflow: modeling, UVing, baking your textures, texturing, and then into your quote-unquote rendering engine. So that was really good, and I'm very happy that I did it that way first, instead of banging my head against something that's very complex. Now you're noticing something that I'm missing, and I love ZBrush. ZBrush is probably my favorite 3D software package to be in, and so I want now in this project, I was like, okay, now let's try and incorporate ZBrush. And already learned a lot about what my settings should be, OBJs or FBX, and if you're going to be using OBJs, what settings you need to put on, and all those things. So learning tons, and I can't wait to show that process to you all in a YouTube video. So yeah, so that's what I'm working on right now. Is this MPX here. Again, this video didn't start from the very beginning because, like I told you, when you're not comfortable in a piece of software, you're fumbling a lot on figuring out how do you want to start this thing. Even though, like, I know the fundamentals, start with the basic shapes, which I completely did, and then I was like, okay, well, how am I going to do these cuts, and how am I going to create these indents and all those things? Do I want to do this in ZBrush Live Boolean tool? Which parts do I want to do that in, etc., etc. So there was a lot of going back and forth, and I wasn't sure which direction I wanted to go, and because of that, I actually did record the beginning of this, and I ended up scrapping it because I was like, no, this is just like an hour of me trying to figure out what I want to do, and it's just not worth your time. So yeah, so the only reason why you're seeing this video is I finally got to a point where I was happy with the workflow that I figured out between Blender and ZBrush. So that's why you're seeing it here. Now this is modeling low poly, right? And then creating Boolean shapes, and then bringing those Boolean shapes and the low poly into ZBrush, and then using Live Boolean tools, the crease tool, and dynamic subdivisions to create a very high quality, high poly mesh, and then from there import it back into Blender. And again, I need to figure out how I'm going to retopologize this. And once I'm a little bit further into that process, I'm sure I'll create another video very similar to this one, where I'll kind of quickly talk over it. Again, there's lots of testing that's going on right now, because again, what I'm noticing a lot on the YouTube right now is, besides Dynasty, there's not too many people actually doing videos on creating Blender assets and then bringing it into game. There's a lot of quote-unquote game Blender art channels, but they're not really UVing and texturing in Substance Painter, for example, or a lot of them aren't doing high poly to low poly baking. Like, they're not really going through the entire process and putting it into a game engine. And to be fair, I'm not doing that either. My game engine, quote unquote, is Marmoset Toolbag, which again, I want to just focus on one piece of software at a time. Right now, it's Blender. In the future, I'm sure I will jump on to Unreal. My goal is to get Blender pretty much down by the end of 2020, and then in 2021 my focus is just Blender, or sorry, not Blender, Unreal. Instead of Marmoset, I'm going to be putting all my assets into Unreal and showcasing the entire workflow for video games, and then only doing my renders and my bakes in Marmoset. So individual like beauty shots and stuff like that in Marmoset, but showcasing how you can do those beautiful screenshots and renders in Unreal is my goal for 2021. So yeah, I was also doing things like I was in the process of creating a Gumroad tutorial in Blender, and then I completely canned that because it just felt like, again, I was fumbling way too much and it just wasn't really worth your time. So I was like, no, like, I don't feel comfortable charging for this, and I just feel like let's just focus on me learning the software again. But I have been testing out how that works. I have been testing out how Gumroad likes sellers to upload their videos, and how like what that process is like. Can I add videos one at a time? After I finish one recording and editing, can I post it up? And all those things, like just understanding the entire pipe for uploading a tutorial. How do I update something if I want to update my tutorial and things like that. So yeah, hopefully you enjoy the time lapse, and hopefully I will be getting to creating more of these for you in the future. Sorry, you all have been kind of who've been waiting for me to kind of learn. You've been very patient, waiting for me to kind of learn and feel comfortable in Blender to start to see more content. But I just want to reassure you that I am working hard behind the scenes, outside of work, to make sure that I can create more content for you all. All right, see you guys all again next time. Bye now.